Hi there, I'm settled in my hotel so I may as well get on with what you might call my quarantine diary. This reminds me of a lot of an incident some years back with a problem with an aircraft being too late, taking off too late and all the connections breaking as a result. It's a blog post called "Where is the information when we need it?" And that's one of the characteristics we had here, that the information we had was confusing, misleading, so much so that, for example, the person who'd offered to let me stay at their house realised that with the new information they couldn't do it. So completely confusing information. In fact, when I arrived at Perth, I had one set of information about COVID-19 and what I had to do. When I arrived at Melbourne, a completely different set of information. So there's often conflicting information. The one characteristic of any disaster, any problem area, even a minor upset, is that where is the information when we most need it? So from an enterprise architecture perspective, what information do people need at each point? What is the information they're likely to need when things go wrong? That's the thing we need to look at as a crucial part of our enterprise architecture work. What is it that falls between the cracks? What happens to the people who don't fit the standard expectations, who don't, in my case, for example, have a home to go to because I'm literally moving from one country to another on the day that I left? Rigid rules just don't make sense for people who don't fit within the cracks. So we have to have some kind of adaptation to deal with the complexities of reality department. When something has to cover everyone, then a simple set of rules that only work for some people is not going to work. All we're left with, often, is to deal with in a practical sense, is the people who've fallen through the cracks. Those are the ones that don't fit. When I got to the airport, to Melbourne Airport, there was no one to give me any advice. I had no idea what the rules were. I had nowhere to get a mask, nowhere to get, in fact, any information at all. So these are typical problems that occur whenever there is confusion, misinformation, lack of there. There's also practical things we can do, like this hotel where I'm staying. They normally had a buffet for breakfast. They'd forgotten to tell me that I couldn't actually come out and get it, so I did go downstairs. But they closed down the buffet and instead already had printed a tick the box routine where food was only being handled by the staff themselves, and that utensils were only being handled by the staff themselves. So the paths for infection were much reduced as a result. And also there was simple social distancing. People were well spaced apart. So there are lots of practical things we can do. Now, when we look at that from an enterprise architecture perspective, what are the needs when things change? How are we going to set things up to make it work? And also, from a very personal perspective, I've already set up escrow for the longer term, so that various colleagues have my access numbers and my passwords, so that if I don't make it through this mess, then at least you will still have the information that I have available. So we can each do something about what we can practically do in a difficult circumstance where the normal rules don't work.